All right, we're going to try something a little different today. We are going to take a snapshot of the entire planet's collective brain, all based on the data from just one single day. So here's a question for you. If you could peek at the world's to-do list for just one day, what do you think you'd find? Would it be full of big, ambitious plans, or just the nitty-gritty stuff of keeping the lights on? Well, that's exactly what we're about to find out. Okay, so how did we do this? Well, to build this picture, we pulled in and analyzed 246 distinct global signals, and these all came in on a single day, January 9th. It gives us this incredible cross-section of what the world was actually focused on. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's break down what those signals actually are. Yeah, regular news is the biggest piece of the pie, no surprise there. But look at the other stuff. 21% was procurement. That's basically the world's shopping list. Another 10% was compliance. That's all the rulemaking and paperwork. These are the signals that show us what the world is actually doing, not just what it's talking about. And that brings us right to our first major theme, what we're calling the world's to-do list. This is where you can really see mature economies just focused on the day-to-day grind of running a country. And wow, right out of the gate, you see this massive split. On one side, you've got the UK, who we're calling the big spender because the data was just flooded with signals about buying stuff. And on the other side, the US, the rule keeper, with this huge surge in regulatory notices. You've got two major Western powers with totally different priorities on this one day. Let's drill down into the UK for a second. It was truly a bid and deliver kind of day. The signals were all about being in a super active buying cycle. We're talking about everything from IT departments renewing their big software contracts to huge infrastructure projects for things like substations and road materials, all the way down to municipal services like catering. Meanwhile, across the pond, the US was, well, they were drowning in paperwork. The signals were just jam-packed with regulatory stuff, airworthiness directives for plans, new state environmental rules, a ton of notices about data privacy. It was all about process, rules, and oversight. And there's a quote from the analysis we used that just hits the nail on the head. This is not a vision day, this is a bid plus deliver day. For these Western economies on this particular Tuesday in January, it wasn't about dreaming up the future, it was about getting stuff done. Okay, so that's one part of the world. But elsewhere, the focus was completely different. We're talking about much higher stakes games being played. Things like national security, intense competition, and trying to future-proof entire economies. Take China, for instance. The signals coming from there showed this incredibly complex balancing act. It felt like they were fighting on 4 different fronts all at once. You had cyber threats, this huge ambition in AI with companies going public, serious economic pressure at home, and of course, the constant geopolitical tensions in the region. And of course, that kind of intense activity doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? It sends ripples out, and it puts direct pressure on its neighbors to figure out how they're going to respond. Which brings us to Japan, and their day can be summed up in just one word: resilience. You can see in their signals that they are reacting directly to all that pressure. They're worried about supply chains, especially with China controlling rare earth exports. They're beefing up their security. And they're making these huge strategic bets on future tech, like an AI-driven memory supercycle, to make sure their industries stay competitive. And all this talk about securing technology leads us to this really critical concept that is shaping global strategy right now: AI sovereignty. Put simply, it's about a country's ability to build and control its own AI without depending on anyone else, all to protect its own national interests. And if you want a perfect, real-world example of this idea in action, well, on this very same day, France was making its move. And boom, here it is. This is what AI sovereignty looks like in practice. The data showed a really clear signal. The French military gave a major contract to a homegrown AI company, Mistral AI. This wasn't just about buying the best tech. It was a strategic choice to invest in their own domestic champion, to build up their own capabilities, especially in a critical area like defense. All right, for our last theme, we're going to pivot hard. Forget defense, forget regulations for a second. Let's talk about the parts of the world that are just purely in building mode. We're calling them the builders of tomorrow. And the poster child for this on January 9th? Absolutely India. The signals were just overwhelmingly positive. The big story was that CapEx is in the driver's seat. The focus was all on investment-led growth, pushing for more domestic manufacturing, and working on big global trade deals. It's all about building, growing, and expanding. And if you need a number to wrap your head around that momentum, how about this one? A single signal about a $1.2 billion European takeover was sending huge waves through the Indian tech scene. The message from India's data was loud and clear. We are building the future, right now. Okay, we have just done a whirlwind tour of the globe in 24 hours. So, what's the big takeaway? Let's zoom back out and decode the day. This chart really just lays it all out, doesn't it? In one 24-hour window, you see these distinct economic personalities emerge. The UK is the big spender. The US is the rule keeper. China is the grand strategist, playing a complex game. And India is the master builder, just focused on pure growth. 4 very different stories, all told by the data from a single day. It just goes to show you, if one single day can reveal a world with so many different competing and fascinating priorities, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What story will tomorrow's signals tell? Thanks for joining me for this deep dive.